What's up YouTube, it's your boy rydollaz and welcome back to the channel. Season 18 dropped last week and it's really shaken up the legend meta. Some were buffed, some were nerfed, and one was completely reworked. So I'm back today with another tier list video, and I'll preface by saying my tier list is entirely subjective and are my opinions.
That's my opinion!
I'm not trying to offend anyone by not placing your main in S tier. And while I'm considering each legend's utility and ranked, this is not an Apex competitive tier list. Oh, and before I forget, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. You know the vibes. All that being said, hope you enjoy the video. Let's get into it. So as of right now, in my opinion, there are no bad legends, which is a good thing. But for this tier list, there's definitely some grading on a curve vibes. For those that don't know what grading on a curve means.
Grading on a curve, also known as curved grading or relative grading, is a method used by some educators to assign grades to students based on their performance relative to the rest of the class. Instead of using a fixed grading scale, such as a percentage or point system, the grades are determined based on a statistical distribution of scores.
I hope that makes sense. For the past two seasons, Revenant was the consensus in need of the most loved legend. But with the rework to his kit this season, that title now belongs to Fuse. He definitely has his place and in certain niche situations is super oppressive, but as it currently stands, he's simply outclassed by the abilities of every other legend on the roster. His passive and tactical abilities are the best parts of his kit, and he definitely benefits from being in the assault class. However, he's limited by a lack of character mobility, and his ultimate ability just isn't very good right now. Rumor has it his heirloom is coming, and with that hopefully a rework to his kit to make him have more potential than just nade spamming. But for all my Fuse mains and for anyone playing Fuse for fun, a couple tips I have would be to get comfortable with weapons that are ammo efficient to free up room in your inventory for more grenades, such as a wingman paired with a shotgun. And when initiating a fight, in most cases, you should probably have your weapon out to start before firing any knuckle clusters or throwables. The next legend I placed in D tier is Ballistic. By no means am I saying he's bad, he's solid. Once again, I just feel like he's outclassed and for the most part has pretty limited utility. The best part of his kit is definitely his ult, Tempest. For 30 seconds, you and your nearby teammates get faster reloads, faster arm move speed, and infinite ammo. The duration is increased by 5 seconds per kill during the activation period, and the best part is that Ballistic's sling weapon is automatically equipped and upgraded to gold level attachments. I'd say the best weapons to carry in his sling this season are the Alternator or the Peacekeeper, which will automatically get Disruptor rounds, or the Rampage or Havoc. Why I don't have him ranked higher is because after seeing last season shake out, and with a slight nerf to his tactical ability this season, the rest of his kit is pretty underwhelming in my opinion, and you're essentially picking him for a single ability that has a 2-minute cooldown. Moving on to the first legend I have in C tier, Lifeline. Oof, I know, I feel bad about this one. I really wanted to place her higher, and have ranked her higher the past few seasons, but the landscape has definitely changed, and I feel like her overall value just isn't where it should be. I think the Apex community as a whole, and especially newer players, like the idea of Lifeline. Her Q is a heal drone that heals 8 health per second with an infinite healing pool, healing all players within 6 meters, which lasts 20 seconds. That sounds great, and can be great in a pinch for sure, especially in an extended battle of attrition. But her drone can be destroyed by the ring after 2 damage ticks. Caustic's gas will make her drone malfunction while inside of the gas. Crypto's Giga Chat drone EMP can destroy hers. And it has a 45-second cooldown, which is hella long. Her ult is a care package that drops in 8 seconds and will always guarantee an upgrade to Lifeline Squad's current loadout, which is a light W. However, even with all of Apex's audio issues, I'm somehow always able to hear and distinguish a Lifeline care package dropping. So in a way, it is sometimes like a third-party beacon, which isn't ideal. The best part of her kit is still her passive ability, Combat Revive, where she deploys her drone to auto-revive teammates. Though a lot of the time this is difficult to finesse, and it's on the Lifeline to effectively buy time for her squad to get up and heal, and oftentimes it just becomes a situation where you're baiting your down teammates. There are definitely a fair amount of obstacles you have to overcome to frag as a Lifeline main, but a goated Lifeline's impact can't be understated. A couple tips I have are to use her heal drone liberally, be careful where you call in her care package, and be flexible with your playstyle in fights. Next up, I have Octane. He has a very simple kit that has a low floor and high ceiling, and is easily one of the most fun legends on the roster. His stim increases his walk speed by 30% and sprint speed by 40% for 6 seconds at the cost of 20 health and can be used in succession. His passive automatically restores white health over time, and his ultimate ability is a launch pad with a 90-second cooldown. My tune on Octane has definitely changed a little bit, which is why I have him ranked higher this season. In all fairness, a great player can offer a lot to any squad with this legend, and there are some awe-inspiring Octane mains out there. But the disparity between those with brains and those that are brain dead is vast, probably more vast than any other legend on the roster, which makes him difficult to place accordingly. That being said, a couple pro tips I have would be to use his stim conservatively and try to use it only in team fights when taking angles, or if you're escaping and trying to survive. He's great in banner recovery situations where your squad needs to reset because you can't outrun an Octane. You're much more valuable as the last man standing and not the first one knocked. Food for thought. At the top of C tier, I have Vantage. I know I'll get flamed in the comments for this one, but let me preface by saying I'm not anti-Vantage. I actually mained her for a while, and once I get in a good flow, she's probably the legend I find the most fun to play. I think in the right hands she can be as high as A tier, and she's a great legend for solo queuing, but she has some fundamental flaws and it's difficult to maximize her kit in my opinion. She's in the recon class, so she's able to scan survey beacons for enemy locations across the map, just like Bloodhound, Seer, or Crypto. Her passive ability allows her to see an opposing legend's name, how many of their teammates are up, and the tier of each of their Evo shields, which, to be fair, is a lot of unique intel. Her Q is a solo movement ability that allows her to launch towards her Bat Echo if Echo is in her line of sight, but obviously her entire kit is centered around her ultimate ability, which is a sniper rifle with bullets the size of big rig trucks. Yes, it's easier to hit shots with her ult than other snipers, and yes, she can be oppressive and seem overpowered at times, but if you're having an off day or are simply not hitting shots, then her kit is borderline useless. Plus, she has a large hitbox without having the fortified perk, which can feel awkward and be punishing at times. But for all my Vantage mains, a pro tip I have is to avoid hard scoping and to play on the front foot, because she offers a lot more utility when played aggressively, where you can capitalize on sniper knocks. Alright, moving on to legends I have ranked in B tier, and every legend I have in this tier I feel is balanced, but could definitely use a little more to become must plays. First up is Mirage. This is the best state I've seen him in since I started playing the game, which is refreshing, and I'm happy for all the Mirage mains that stuck with him through tough times. I think what took him over the top to become a pretty interesting pick is his addition to the support class. This grants him access to blue loot crates across the map, as well as the ability to craft teammate banners. That, along with his Invisares for revives and at respawn beacons, makes him a pretty viable pick in the support character role. He also possesses a lot of offensive outplay potential with his low cooldown ultimate, and a pro tip I have is that you should be popping that pretty liberally. Overall, he's a super fun legend to play, but is more limited compared to other legends on the roster simply due to his design. I have the Gas Daddy himself as my next legend in B tier. It seems like he's always in and out of the legend meta at the highest levels of play, but he's been sturdy and will continue to be sturdy. Nobody is better at holding down buildings than Caustic, and with King's Canyon and Olympus back in the map rotation, you could do worse than picking him. I know a lot of us have some level of disdain for his kit, Caustic gamers, and their respective playstyle, but I'd probably guess that 80% of you have never actually tried playing him before. It's honestly pretty fun when you're not on the receiving end of his gas, and he's also very forgiving, especially if you're on controller, because fun fact, you do get aim assist through his gas, unlike Bank Smoke. A tip I have that I've been using whenever I play him is, if I need a heal or go for a res, or just need a second to collect myself and reset, I'll deploy a trap or two and shoot them to trigger them, and that will usually buy me some time. If you do try him out in some games, please drop a comment and let me know how you did. Next up, we have Bloodhound. I apologize, immediately apologizing. I know it seems crazy that we're living in a timeline where scan meta has fallen off, but I think that's the reality. Bloodhound is still Bloodhound though, and their scans will always add value in games at any elo, just now a little less. Their kit was reworked a few seasons ago, and as the landscape of the legend meta continued to shift, the rework just wasn't it in my opinion. Full body scans only last for a second, which isn't a long time, so if you're running Blood, make sure to calm when you're gonna scan, otherwise your squad may miss it. And like I mentioned earlier about the community liking the idea of Lifeline, I think that applies to the White Raven. It's somewhat useful, but is a little lackluster in my opinion. And I think Ashe's passive is better. Just saying. And for better or for worse, their ultimate Beast of the Hunt is also not what it used to be. You don't get a faster cooldown on Eye of the Allfather scans, but instead will get White Ravens that fly in the direction of enemies that are already highlighted red. See what I mean? The red highlight and faster move speed is still cool though. And a tip I have for Bloodhound gamers, if you're in a last man up situation or pretending that you don't exist, be mindful of the fact that a scan doesn't just let you know where enemies are, it lets enemies know where you are too. Alright, moving on to the next legend I have ranked in B tier, Rampart. Shout out all the Rampart mains that flamed me in the comments in my previous tier list videos. I see you, and hopefully this season's ranking sits better with you guys. Because she's a hard counter to Catalyst and can literally laser players out the sky with Sheila, it's hard to ignore her impact and her potential. She has a high skill gap, but is super strong when played correctly. Where I didn't give her enough credit in the past is her proficiency at holding buildings with her amp covers, and in my opinion the thing with controller class legends is that yes, while they're quote unquote defensive, they really shine when played aggressively. The key is patience. Oh, and the Spitfire received a buff this season, so there's that. Run it and make use of her passive. Moving on, we have Gibby. I thought about this one a lot, especially because his ultimate ability's cooldown is 90 seconds faster. That's significant, and I can definitely see him rising in the meta the next couple months. But for now, I feel this is fair. Never thought I'd miss seeing Gibby gamers, so I'm glad he got some love this season. What I appreciate about his playstyle is that it's selfless and calls for a team-first mentality. But that's also inherently the biggest challenge and what's difficult to master, because we can all admit that while Apex is a team game, most people play selfishly. But yo, to my Gibby mains, when I was playing him for content, I noticed that players see me with my bubble and just grief me. Let me know in the comments if you ever experienced that also, or if it's just a skill issue. Genuinely curious. Closing out this tier, I have Ashe. Sorry to all my Ashe mains, it also pains me, but I had to be honest. If I had a B+ or A- tier on my list this season, I'd definitely put her there, but as it stands, I think the top of B tier is fair. The thing with Ashe that even I struggle with at times is that she's very unforgiving. She does technically have a get out of jail free card, which is her ultimate phase breach, but with a 2-minute cooldown and no movement abilities otherwise, off drop, and at various other stages of the match, you're literally raw dogging life. Her kit is best suited for high skilled players, and you'll have the most fun when you're dominating lower skilled opponents. But with the current state of Apex matchmaking, yeah. I've personally reframed all these drawbacks as a means to give myself a reality check. How good are my fundamentals? How good is my positioning? How good is my decision making? Answer to those questions become crystal clear when playing Ashe, and I think that's a factor that makes her unappealing to a lot of players. They don't want to look in the mirror. That being said, I still think she's slept on. Yes, I could probably think of a couple different potential buffs for each ability in her kit that are realistic, but her passive is useful, her Q is more useful than people give it credit for, and her ult as well. Shameless plug, I recently put out an Ashe guide, so if you want a more in-depth breakdown on her kit and playstyle, go check it out. I'll link it in the description below. And if you have any legend guide requests, let me know in the comments. But yeah, shout out all the Ashe mains. Our time will come. Starting off A tier, I have Crypto. Maybe the most difficult legend to play and master on the roster. In the right hands, his impact can't be understated, especially given the current state of the meta and of the recon class specifically. And here's my hot take. In the right hands, I think he's currently the best recon legend in the game. Obviously, I don't have him ranked as such on this tier list technically, but that's my opinion. For the casual player though, Seer and Bloodhound remain as much more user-friendly options that yield similar results. But if you're committed to the challenge of being a crypto gamer, he has a lot of unique potential that other legends in his class and on the roster don't. Remote beacon scans, remote banner recovery, remote respawns, to name a few. And if coordinated effectively, his EMP is a major game changer. Something I've been doing is deploying my drone and positioning it to where if an enemy turns a corner out of a blind spot, I'll be notified. And it's also possible to pop a big med and enter your drone to survey the landscape for a couple seconds if it's already deployed, which is kinda crazy. Next up, I have Valk. I thought that with her prestige skin releasing, she'd receive a buff of some sort, but that just wasn't the case. I'm sure that's a bummer to all the Valk mains out there because she's a shell of her former self. Unlike Mirage, for example, who is outperforming his character design, Valk is underperforming hers. But that being said, she's still A tier off the back of how her kit is designed. She's still great. She has a jetpack, she provides scans when she's in the air, she can scan care packages with the skirmisher perk, her Q allows her to fire missiles to stun her opponents, and she is a walking jump tower. Like, that's wild. Even if it feels like she was nerfed into the ground and feels a little hollow to play at times. And yes, with the addition of evac tower, she isn't a must pick anymore, but a pro tip I have is you can deploy an evac and fly off it solo to scout while saving your ult. Food for thought. The next legend I have in A tier is Mad Maggie. I'm definitely a believer in her kit and her potential and can envision a scenario where she's pushing S tier in the near future. From my perspective, it has felt like we've been right on the cusp of her time arriving, but it just hasn't shaken out that way quite yet. So for now, I'm ranking her a little more conservatively than I have in the past few seasons. Nevertheless, she's very strong, especially when shotguns are as viable as they are. No movement penalty with a PK plus movement speed boost off her wrecking ball? Mwah! I forgot how good she feels to play sometimes. A knock I have though is that her ultimate is pretty inconsistent. I realize that's by design, but the fact that it almost feels like a 50-50 in certain situations the ball will bounce back and stun you and your team is a problem. My advice to my Maggie mains is to strive to find the middle point between rage and serenity in engagements. You want to play a little angry, and trying to be too methodical when playing her might limit your ceiling overall. I know how that sounds, but trust me on this one. Hey, there he is, our favorite legend, Seer. How many more times will Respawn rework his kit? The limit does not exist. If you haven't played the game in a little while, let me fill you in. Halfway through last season, they reworked his kit, and more or less, you can't toss his ultimate as far, and it only shows heartbeats of players that are firing their weapon. And his Q is reworked to no longer cancel heals or revives. W, right? Well, instead, he gave a 2.5 second slow and a 10-second silence. To anyone who was fronting and saying, it's actually not that bad, shut your damn mouth. Now this season, they reworked the rework. His slow duration was reduced to 0.5 seconds, and the silence duration was reduced to 8 seconds. That seems more reasonable, but as is the case with Valk, he's a shell of himself and feels a little hollow to play. At least he's not as oppressive, which I'm about, but honestly, I feel bad if you're a Seer main. Having to adjust to all the different variations of his kit is less than ideal, so I see you and I empathize. Moving on, I have Wraith as my next legend in A tier. She's still the undisputed no-fill GOAT and offers the best get-out-of-jail-free card in the game, which is her tactical ability, Into the Void. She's also probably the best entry fragger and scout on the roster, which is why she's remained a popular pick over the course of Apex's life cycle. Her ultimate is also in the best place I've seen it, which makes her a lot more playable on bigger maps with wide open space than in the past, which is huge. and her ultimate cooldown is 30 seconds faster this season. But her best map, World's Edge, is currently out of rotation, and unless you have immediate cover to retreat to, it's easy to mis-execute her Q. Plus her passive ability is a little sad, let's be honest. But all things considered, I don't have many knocks to Wraith in her kit. She's still one of the strongest legends in the game that the best players will continue to gravitate towards. Alright, another hot take incoming. Closing out A tier, I have Wattson. Simply put, she's slept on, and it's no coincidence she has one of the highest win rate percentages of any legend on the roster. I've noticed a lot of the community aren't Wattson believers, or are simply turned off to the skill gap associated with learning how to play her, but honestly, her presence in fights can be the difference between surviving or dying. And with control class legends becoming more valuable seemingly by the day, her value in any squad is very high right now. This season, they made some ring changes where the ring will be more damaging, and it's even more punishing in diamond and up rank lobbies. This incentivizes early rotating and playing zone, instead of playing edge if you're trying to win your games, and her kit was built for that style of play. If you're new to playing Wattson or have never played her before, an important detail to note is that she can have 12 nodes active on the map at a time. A couple tips I have would be to use her fences, and not just when holding buildings. Use them to show presence and hold areas of space in the open. And don't hesitate to place her ult down in fights, because popping a single ultimate accelerant will recharge it back to 100%. Don't sleep, all I'm saying. And shout out my boy Wallace and all the other Wattson gamers. Moving on to the A+ tier, I made one sub tier as I felt it was necessary to categorize a couple legends I felt were better than A tier, but not quite S tier. The first legend I have in this tier is Newcastle. I'm a big Newcastle believer, and I've been glazing his kit for quite a while, so it's honestly a little disappointing to see how low his pick rate is. He's right there with Crypto, vying for the title of most difficult legend to play correctly and effectively. But I think he has more fun potential once you get over the hump, and he's so good that he takes a game that has a more serious, sweaty undertone and makes it lighthearted and funny with the type of plays you can make. His passive Retrieve the Wounded is the best res ability in the game and allows you to be mobile while rezzing a down teammate, all while using his knockdown shield as protection. His passive mobile shield is insane and very versatile, and his ultimate allows you to leap to an ally or target area and place a wall of cover. However, a pro tip I have is to not necessarily be super reliant on his ultimate as cover, but instead use it to extend pre-existing cover. And if you're not in need of cover in an engagement, it is a very strong repositioning and flanking tool, so keep that in mind. Overall, this guy is insane in my opinion. The next legend I have in the A+ tier is Pathfinder. Last season I had him ranked in S tier, and he was the most popular legend by pick rate, which was no coincidence. I was a little less liberal when doing my tier list this season across the board, and while he did receive a nerf to his ultimate ability, which now has a 60-second longer cooldown, he's not any less insane than he was last season. His grapple is the most unique movement ability in the game and allows you to play in a way that isn't possible on any other legend. He also benefits the most from the Skirmisher perk, which immediately recharges his zipline to 100% per care package scan. It's honestly hilarious seeing the homies horny for those scans just to be able to launch ziplines in random directions, but also can't blame them, that's a pretty crazy perk. And with King's Canyon back in rotation, running Pathfinder feels almost unfair with how easily and quickly you can traverse the map. It honestly does make sense that Respawn is trying to limit that a little bit with the nerf to his ultimate. It was a little out of hand last season, the extent to which the Pathy gamers were flying around. They deserve it though, to be fair. A couple simple tips I have for anyone picking up Pathy are when grappling, jump when the grapple gun makes contact, and look in the direction you're trying to go. Definitely a learning curve there, but the sky's the limit in terms of fun potential. Alright, here he is. Closing out A+ tier, I have the new and improved Revenant. At this point, I could have probably put him straight into S tier with how busted he is, and I'll probably get flamed for not doing so. But realistically, Respawn may put out a patch in the near future to nerf him a little bit, and there's a lot of hype surrounding him right now, but I felt okay putting him right on the cusp, which says a lot. His kit is pretty different than it was before the rework. He's now in the Skirmisher class instead of the Assault class. His passive ability allows him to crouch walk faster and scale walls 6 times higher than a normal legend, which is almost the same as before, but now he can crawl side to side and he gets a highlight on enemies that are low on health. His passive Shadow Pounce is reminiscent of Vantage's Echo Relocation. You leap forward anywhere from 20 meters to 50 meters, and holding up to 3 seconds will launch you further. And his new and improved ultimate Forged Shadows creates a 75 HP shield around him that lasts for 25 seconds that can block damage and regenerate. While in his ultimate, securing a knock will bring the Shadow Shroud to full health, extend the Shroud's duration, and recharge his tactical. Honestly, what the fuck? Someone at Respawn must really like Revenant. And oh, would you look at the time? It's 8 o'clock. Shout out Guapi, man. Excited for your content. Moving on to legends I've placed in S tier, which I consider to be unequivocally the best legends in the game this season. And the order I've ranked them in is my opinion, but I say that because I believe there's a case that can be made for each of them being the best legend in the game. That being said, the first legend I have in S tier this season is Loba. Luke Goblins rejoice! For solo queuing ranked games, she's the best option in my opinion. I have her ranked as my top support class legend, and that's primarily because of the escapability her bracelet provides. The cooldown of her black market is now 30 seconds longer, which is definitely significant, especially off drop in the earliest stages of the match. But obviously she's still insane with the value she is able to provide, and as time goes on, I really am starting to form the opinion that we are in fact playing a looting game and not a shooting game. A pro tip I have for my Loba mains out there, if you're under fire and toss your Q to try and escape, you can strafe and move behind available cover as you wait to teleport. You don't have to walk in a straight line or stand still. Food for thought. Next up in S tier, I have Bangalore. My girl has been dethroned, guys, it's over. But hey, you know, at least nobody can say I'm biased now. I try not to watch anyone else's tier list videos or legend rankings until after I put mine out, but I have seen some L takes saying Bangalore shouldn't be played because of the SMG nerf this season. She doesn't just excel with one weapon class, and if you really believe that, then it's a skill issue. Sorry. She's still great and super valuable in any team comp. And like I mentioned before, any legend in S tier has a case for being the best legend in the game in Season 18. Why I've dropped her a few spots is because her ultimate ability now has a 240-second cooldown. That's 4 minutes, which is crazy to me. Gibby's ultimate cooldown is only 3 minutes now. How does that make any sense? But hey, listen, even if you can't throw her ultimate as often, it's okay. What this means is that the adjustment needs to be that you save her ult for defensive and zoning situations and not just chuck it at every chance that you get to potentially grief teams and or your own squad. Her double time passive ability is still a top 2 passive in the game, and her smokes are super useful and versatile. I've been asked a couple times now if she can be played defensively or if she's a good solo queue legend, and the answer to both is yes. She offers both defensive and offensive utility and caters to a hybrid playstyle, which is why she's still an S tier pick this season. I have Catalyst as my next legend in S tier. Like Bangalore, she also caters to a hybrid playstyle and offers both defensive and offensive utility. That versatility and the ability to excel both indoors and in the open are why she's my top rated control class legend. Her passive ability is absolutely insane. She's able to reinforce doors and can reinforce spaces where doors have been destroyed as well. It takes 4 melee hits to break down any door that has been reinforced by Catalyst, which is really effective in slowing enemy teams' pushes. Her ultimate allows her to raise a wall of ferrofluid, and this is super useful for cutting line of sight or splitting and isolating members on opposing teams. You can be really creative with everything her kit offers, and a pro tip I have for all my Catalyst gamers: if you use her Q and sit in it while you're popping a med, when an enemy is close, the patch of ferrofluid will turn into spikes, and you can kind of finesse hiding in there to finish healing, then get the jump on your opponent. Closing out S tier and the best legend in the game this season, in my opinion, is Horizon. She didn't receive any buffs this season. In fact, she received a slight nerf to her ultimate ability, Black Hole, where it now has a 30-second longer cooldown. But it's hard to ignore or invalidate how effective she continues to be season after season. And as the landscape has changed around her, and with her best maps currently being the ones in rotation, she's my top legend in Season 18. Her passive ability, Spacewalk, is honestly super addicting, and my second favorite passive ability after Bangalore's Double Time. Objectively though, definitely a top 2 passive. Someone asked me if she offers any team utility, and she definitely does, with both her tactical and ultimate abilities. Being able to have your squad immediately take height with her grav lift is incredibly useful, and when played correctly, her Black Hole can swing a fight with ease. There's a phrase currently circulating throughout the Apex community, Horizon Crutch. Well, I think that is a bit harsh. It alludes to the fact that she's very forgiving and easy to play effectively. All things considered, definitely a no-brainer pick, to be honest with you. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. While I think it's worth noting and being aware of what the legend meta currently is, like I said at the beginning of the video, there are no bad legends. Play who you find fun and master whoever you choose to main. Any legend is S tier in the right hands. Let me know in the comments who you're running this season and what your ideal team comp is. Hopefully this tier list helps you, and I'll see you in the next one.